Is dancing sinful? This question requires a fairly long answer because it's somewhat nuanced. Let's start with the Second Council of Nicaea, which decreed, they, meaning the layfolk, should avoid certain theatrical entertainments, diabolical songs, the strumming of lyres, and dancing fit for harlots. So we should note that the council didn't issue a blanket condemnation of dancing, but condemned lewd dancing. Much later, St. Francis de Sales wrote, "Dances and balls are things in themselves indifferent, but the circumstances ordinarily surrounding them have so generally an evil tendency that they become full of temptation and danger. The time of night at which they take place is in itself conducive to harm, both as to the season when people's nerves are most excited and open to evil impressions. Moreover, those who frequent balls almost inevitably foster their vanity, and vanity is very conducive to unholy desires and dangerous attachments." And he concluded, "So dance but little, and that rarely, my daughter, lest you run the risk of growing over fond of the amusement." Here we read in the Morning Star and Catholic Messenger, which was a Catholic publication centered out of New Orleans, dated April 19th of 1874, and it discusses round dances. In our synod, we have the repeated condemnation of what we call round dances, already severely reprobated by all the bishops of the country and of the pastoral letter of the Baltimore Council of 1866. In the judgment of many whose opinions are of high authority, they are indecent in themselves, and undoubtedly their tendency is to inflame evil passions and offend against natural modesty. You are therefore forbidden to take part in them, and it cannot be regarded as entirely innocent even to encourage them by looking on with complacency. A little more than 100 years ago, the Catholic Encyclopedia wrote, "Undoubtedly old national dances in which the performers stand apart, hardly if at all holding the partner's hands, fall under the ethical censure scarcely more than any other kind of social intercourse. But aside from concomitants, place, late hours, escorting, etc., common to all such entertainments, round dances, although they may possibly be carried on with decorum and modesty, are regarded by moralists as fraught by their very nature and with greatest peril to morals." Dancing has occasionally been addressed by the papacy. In 1921, Pope Benedict XV addressed it. And we should note that after both world wars, moral standards were generally eroded. He wrote, "We speak not of those exotic and barbarous dances recently imported into fashionable circles, one more shocking than the other. One cannot imagine anything more suitable for banishing all that remains of modesty." And after the death of Benedict, just 1 year later, Pope Pius XI wrote, "We lament, too, the destruction of purity among women and young girls, as is evidenced by the increasing immodesty of their dress and conversation, and by their participation in shameful dances, which sins are made the more heinous by the vaunting in the faces of people less fortunate than themselves and their luxurious mode of life." I think that the best summary that I could find of the Church's position on dancing was in this article from the Catholic Advance, dated August 14th of 1902. The title of the article was, "Is Dancing Forbidden? Are dances of any kind prohibited, and if so, what are they?" And it gives the start of a comprehensive answer. Dancing may be prohibited in two ways. First, by a diocesan law made by the proper authorities. Second, by the general moral law which prohibits what is sinful. With regard to the second prohibition, we must bear in mind several things. And it continues, "Dancing in itself, like drinking in itself, is not sinful, but dancing, like drinking, may become sinful, and that is in three classes of cases. Thus, in the first place, everyone knows beforehand that there are certain dancing entertainments which are bound to be sinful, just as everyone knows beforehand that there are certain drinking parties which are bound to wind up in drunkenness. To attend such entertainments is forbidden by the general law, which prohibits us from going into occasions of sin, and this is the first and general case in which dancing is prohibited. Secondly, there are certain classes of dancing which, by common consent, are considered innocuous, while there are other classes of dancing which are commonly considered dangerous. We are under the impression that what are called round dances are usually classed under the latter category. However, even here, it is almost impossible to lay down a general rule. What may be innocent to one person may be sinful to another. And after I finish this article, let's get back to the subject of round dances and discuss just what they are. Thirdly, dancing is prohibited in individual cases, where for such cases it may be an occasion of sin. What these cases are has been settled by each one individually, and the best person to help you reach a solution is your confessor. As to a diocesan law, of course you understand that as the state may make a general law prohibiting the sale of intoxicating liquors, and even as temperate men would be bound to observe, so the church might make a general law forbidding dancing or certain classes of dances, and even those to whom dancing is altogether innocent would be bound to observe it. In certain dioceses, there is a prohibition based on the distinction mentioned above between round dancing and square dances. The faithful are forbidden to join in round dances, and though such dancing to them might not be an occasion of sin, they sin by breaking the command. This is generally summed up in the saying that dancing is not bad in itself, but bad because it is forbidden. So round dances seem to be a recurrent theme, but until I researched this video, I had no idea what round dancing is. So I asked Grok. I asked in 1911 what were considered round dances. And Grok says, in 1911, round dances were generally referred to dances where partners moved together in circular or rotating fashion around the dance floor. Here are some of the dances that would have been considered round dances during that period, and it lists the waltz, the foxtrot, the two-step, and the polka. These dances were part of the social dance culture of the time, often performed at balls, in dance halls, or during social gatherings. So part of the problem was that these dances were performed in dance halls and other social gatherings, and these events could lead to an occasion of sin. When we look at the nature of round dances, they seem pretty tame by modern standards. Please recall that the article in the Catholic Advance was before the jazz dances that were introduced in the 1920s, and then later rock and roll dancing, which still involves suggestive gyrations of the body. As I've noted earlier in this video and several times on my channel, World War II and its aftermath was a time of gradualism. Though the question of whether dancing is sinful was treated with regularity in the Catholic press in the decades prior to the Second World War, it disappeared from the pages of the Catholic press after the war. Even Catholics no longer wanted to think about it, and that's still pretty much where we are today. Most people don't want to consider whether dancing is sinful, and they don't even want to hear about it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again in about a week with another one, but in the meantime, please check out my new channel on Instagram, my page on X, and my page on Facebook. Every day I post additional content that you won't find on this YouTube channel, and please pray for the church.